Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, isn't it? It seems like the oddest things trigger the feeling as well. For some of us, that could be Disney movies on fuzzy VHS tapes, advertisements from an old magazine, or even locations that remind you of a time long past. Sometimes crystal clear or surreal images stick in our mind for a lifetime, for better or worse. For me, the Shareware era that occurred between the 1990s and early 2000s stick in my head with extreme clarity. Particularly when CD-ROMs became more popular, you would get these discs with hundreds, sometimes thousands of games and programs. In a pre-internet world, these were awesome to explore and find new games to play. Even today, some of these weird or obscure games stick in my mind, and I want to talk about them. So let's do that. Here are 6 games that live rent-free in my head all these years later. Number 1. Dynamite Joe, released by Silicon Valley in 1996. I think anyone who was accustomed to indulging in some PC shareware back in the day has probably come across Dynamite Joe. I remember finding this game on some Software USA compilation CDs that my grandma had a subscription to. It's far from an original game, as it's heavily inspired by Dig Dug and Boulder Dash, but I think it's an improvement from those games. Obviously, the main goal is very similar, in which you collect keys and dispatch enemies to complete a level, but it has a cops and robbers theme that I really think is kind of fun. Also, being Dynamite Joe, you of course have dynamite, which you can throw like a boomerang in conjunction to being able to push rocks to crush unsuspecting cops and police cars. Even today, I find the graphical presentation, sounds, and those silly little cutscenes between levels to be infinitely charming. Oddly, despite being a well-known shareware title, the registered full version of this game was unobtainium until fairly recently. The original creator stated that he had lost the registered version in a hard drive crash, and it was thought to be lost forever. There was even a guy on Reddit offering a $100 bounty to whoever could find him the full game. Thankfully, a full registered copy of Dynamite Joe surfaced online in 2022. Letting us all finally play it some 2 decades later. And you know what? It's still some silly arcade fun to waste some time in, and I recommend you give it a go if you get the chance. Our second game is Liero, or is it Liero? I don't know how to say it, but either way, it's the Finnish word for earthworm, and it was released by Junsa Rekkanen in 1998. Also unclear if I'm saying that name right, but let's move on. These days, we see lots of local split-screen multiplayer games on the PC, but in the early days, there weren't a lot of choices. While my younger brother and I did have an NES and got a PS2 years later, we played lots of games on the family computer. One that seemingly provided hours of entertainment was Liero. The best way to describe this game is real-time Worms Armageddon, and it's a 2-player deathmatch game that is chaotic carnage from start to finish. With 2 human players huddled around the same keyboard, you can freely move around in a fully destructible 2D environment as a worm with a grappling hook, blasting each other away with up to 40 different weapons. Later on, there were also mods that get you even more powerful and ridiculous weapons, and new maps. I think this game is still quite a bit of fun. I played it recently with my brother, and he didn't quite agree due to the somewhat clunky aiming controls, but to me, it's still awesome. Since the original release in '98, it has also been re-released and improved multiple times, and there's even a web version you can play with friends over the internet. While I think the basic formula of Liero has been improved with more modern games like Soldat and Rounds, this one holds a special place in my heart. And numpad. Number 3, Cosmo's Cosmic Adventure, released by Apogee in 1992. Apogee was a shareware powerhouse in the early to mid-90s, and in retrospect, with games like Commander Keen and Duke Nukem, they're very rarely forgotten. However, they did have quite a few other titles that never get a lot of love these days. Cosmo is one of those games. It's the one everyone forgets, except me, I guess. I still remember being enthralled by the colorful graphics and thinking that it looked like something on the SNES. As a platformer, I still think it's pretty neat, even if it does have some slightly cursed-looking characters. You play as the titular character Cosmo, who is a green red-headed alien with toilet plungers for hands. The game plays a bit like Sonic the Hedgehog in slow motion, and you can use the aforementioned toilet plunger hands to scale walls, which is an interesting mechanic. Unsurprisingly, it also includes a Bobby Prince ad-lib soundtrack, but oddly enough, only PC speaker sound effects, which is kind of disappointing. I think there are definitely some things carried over from Duke Nukem 1 graphically, and Cosmo kind of feels like the stopgap between the release of Duke 2. I like the game though, and if you enjoy Apogee platformers, I don't think you'll be disappointed, as it feels like a very high quality game considering its age. As for our next game, I can't really say the same, and just because it sticks out in my memory doesn't make it a good game. Number 4. Nitemare 3D, developed by Gray Design Associates in 1994. Yeah, they really spelled it like that, and here I thought only thrash metal bands were allowed to spell their name wrong on purpose. Nitemare 3D is a continuation of the Hugo series of graphical text parser adventure games, which were popular early 90s shareware titles. In this entry of the series, you control Hugo yet again on a quest to rescue his girlfriend from a creepy mansion, but this time in FPS format because Wolf 3D and Doom came out and now everything needs to be a 3D game. On paper, this should be yet another forgettable clone of Wolf 3D, but oddly, this game pops in my head quite a bit when I think of shooters from this era. This isn't the case because the game is great. In fact, I find it to be one of the clunkiest early shooters out there. However, the atmosphere and visuals make it hard for me to forget, and as a kid, I always found this game to be creepy as heck. And to be honest, I still kind of feel that way. The gargoyles on the edges of the screen, dim environments, lo-fi monster growls, and the amateurish artwork that depicts Hugo transforming into a skeleton as he takes more damage. It's all so off-putting, and obviously intentional considering the setting of the game, but it works better than it has any right to. As for gameplay, like I said, it's mediocre at best. The gunplay feels sloppy and all over the place with bullets that don't seem to go where you're aiming. It should be praised for its abundance of hidden areas and secrets, which can be interesting, but overall it's just another 90s maze and key FPS with a creepy atmosphere. It still haunts my dreams though, so that's why it's on this list. Number 5. Gorilla, released by Microsoft in 1990. While this game wasn't technically shareware, it might as well have been, since it was included with every copy of MS-DOS 5.0 and Windows 9X. Packaged with QBasic Interpreter as a demo of sorts, it is a very simple yet addictive and fun concept for a game. Gorilla is a two-player tactical turn-based strategy game in which each player tries to take each other out by throwing explosive bananas at each other. To do so, all you need to do is type in the angle and how much power you want, and then you just take turns until you hit each other. Each round also has a randomized cityscape and wind speed to add a bit of variation. If normal Earth gravity gets boring, you can also adjust it to your heart's content and play with moon gravity or something. This game is a good example that simple games with fun concepts can still hold up many years later. Indeed, Gorilla is still a fun way to burn a few minutes, and I have fond memories of playing it with my dad. In 2001, there was an unofficial sequel entitled Gorilla 2: The Return, which adds network play, more players, power-ups, and different skins. This one is great too, and might be the best way to play it today. But either way, Gorilla is a classic that I still get a kick out of. Number 6. Electroman by Xland Games, released in 1992. This is one of those games I played a long time ago, and it's stuck in my head. Unfortunately, it was also one of those games I completely forgot the name of at some point, and then was like, oh yeah, that game, when looking at some screenshots online. I can see why I remembered it, as it has an interesting look with a very RoboCop looking dude as the main character. Being HoboCop here, you can run around clearing static screens and doing general platformy things. You can also collect power-ups for your weapon that open up new areas and allow you to defeat enemies more easily. Unlike many platformers, there's no set limit on lives. Instead, it works on a checkpoint system where you return and try again every time you die. Considering you only take one hit and the controls are a bit stiff, it can be a little frustrating, but at least you get unlimited tries. It's not as focused on lots of frantic shooting action, and the environment will probably kill you more than the enemies will. As more of a puzzle platformer, a slower approach and looking before you leap is the name of the game. In fact, some of the later levels feel a bit like 2D Frogger more than anything. There is a strange lack of music for most of the game, but it does have digital speech and sound effects that are used sparingly to make the game feel a bit eerie.
We have to be careful. This is an emergency area.
To be completely honest, replaying this game again has done no favors for my view of it. I really like the graphics and even the movement, but the checkpoint system is extremely flawed by the sheer amount of backtracking needed whenever you lose. Even the first level of this game is fairly difficult, and I have to say getting further in the game is more frustrating than fun. Sometimes this is the risk you take when you try an old game years later, but I guess it was still fun to give it a go again. On second thought. Well, that was 6 games that I remember from the Shareware era. What about you? I'm always looking for new Shareware games to play, so let me know which ones that you really enjoyed. But anyway, that's all for the video today. Subscribe, watch my other videos and whatnot, and I'll see you guys next time.